Welcome to the Psychology Undergrad.
Yeah, we are so glad you're here sitting in on our study session today.
We really are. We're doing a deep dive into the source material today, specifically looking at a really dense, honestly kind of intense chapter.
Oh, absolutely. It's somatic symptom and dissociative disorders, which, I mean, it sounds like a mouthful.
It really does. But basically, our mission here is to unpack the extreme ways that the human mind and body react to severe stress and trauma.
Right. And we're going to break down these complex conditions, hopefully give you some easy ways to remember them for your own conceptual understanding, and, kind of grapple with the heavy moral questions they bring up.
Yeah, because they bring up a lot of them. We're essentially looking at two main buckets today. First, somatic disorders, which is where the mind's distress physically manifests in the body.
Mm.
And then dissociative disorders, where the mind it escapes the distress by completely altering memory or identity.
So, starting with that first bucket, the somatic side. The thematic connection here is that before we talk about the mind escaping, we need to look at what happens when the mind forces the body to absorb the trauma.
Right, it's like a physical manifestation of psychological stress.
Exactly. So for the listener, an easy memory trick here, somatic symptom disorders, soma is Greek for body.
Right.
So just think of psychological pain basically wearing a bodysuit.
I like that. The bodysuit analogy works really well because when we talk about illness anxiety disorder, which used to be called hypochondriasis, the physical symptoms are incredibly real to the person.
Oh, totally. They aren't faking it.
No, not at all. Like, the text mentions this tragic case of Mr. V.
Oh, man, that case.
It's so intense. So Mr. V was 25, and he thought there were tiny bugs crawling all over him constantly.
And just to clarify, he wasn't visually hallucinating them.
Right, exactly. His somatosensory cortex was literally generating the physical sensation of bugs on his skin.
That is just, I can't even imagine the torment.
It was so bad that he scratched himself to death. He tore off his fingernails trying to get to them, and he died at 25 from severe infections in his blood and spine.
Wow. Just from scratching.
Yeah. It just shows how the brain's belief about what is happening can completely override physical reality, which, kind of tees up conversion disorder.
Right? Conversion disorder is wild. This is where actual sensory or motor functions just fail. But there's zero neurological cause.
Like going blind for no physical reason.
Exactly. Or your legs get paralyzed. But the brain scans and the nerve tests are perfectly healthy. And the classic example they always talk about is glove anesthesia.
Oh, yeah, the glove thing.
Yeah, so someone gets total numbness in their hand, but it stops perfectly at the wrist, like right where a glove would end.
Which is biologically impossible.
Right, because the nerves don't work like that. They run up your arm.
Yeah, they run longitudinally. So if you actually severed a nerve, you'd have numbness in a vertical strip, not a perfect circle around your wrist.
Exactly. So that tells clinicians that the brain is mapping the paralysis to the person's conceptual idea of what a hand is, not the actual biology.
That is so fascinating. And it gets crazier when you look at social contagion. Like, the brain's glitch can literally spread to other people.
Oh, you're talking about the Leroy outbreak?
Yes, the 2012 outbreak in Leroy, New York. So for those of you who don't know, basically 18 people, mostly these teenage girls in high school, just suddenly developed these uncontrollable Tourette's-like tics.
Just out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. And the parents were terrified. They even brought in Erin Brockovich, the environmental activist.
Oh, really? I forgot she was involved.
Yeah, they thought it was a toxic chemical spill from this 1971 train derailment.
Right.
They thought the water was poison.
But the tests ruled it out, right?
Completely ruled it out. The medical experts concluded it was a mass psychogenic illness, basically conversion disorder on a group level,
Yeah.
mass hysteria.
Wow. Because,
No.
extreme psychosocial pressure.
Exactly. And exacerbated by social media. They have these mirror neurons, and humans naturally mimic each other to build social cohesion.
Right. We just mirror what we see.
Yeah, and it just cascaded through the community. The text notes it was actually super similar to an outbreak among some Amish girls a few years before that.
That makes sense. Tight-knit communities. So to help you conceptualize this at home, it's kind of like your car's computer system glitching.
Oh, I like that.
Right, so the engine is totally fine, but the check engine light is flashing wildly on the dashboard. The hardware is perfect, but the software is just locking everything down.
But that raises a really tough question, right? Like, I have to push back a little. How do doctors know they aren't just making it up?
Ah, yeah. And that leads us perfectly into the morality of faking it. The distinction between subconscious conversion and intentional deception.
Right. Malingering versus factitious disorder?
Exactly. So malingering is basically faking an illness for an external reward.
Like insurance money.
Yeah, insurance payouts or avoiding military duty, getting out of work. The motive is very worldly, very clear.
But factitious disorder is way darker.
It really is
Yeah.
a memory trick for you guys. Factitious sounds like fictitious.
Ooh.
The illness is a fiction, but they create it just to assume the sick role.
Right. They just want the attention, the affection from doctors or family.
Exactly. There's no financial payout.
Yeah.
And the most chilling version of this is Munchausen syndrome by proxy.
Oh, factitious disorder by proxy.
Yeah, where a caretaker makes someone else sick, like the Kathleen Bush case from the textbook.
That case is horrifying. She caused her 7-year-old daughter to undergo, what, 40 surgeries?
40 surgeries and over 150 hospitalizations.
Just by intentionally contaminating her feeding tube, right?
Yes, with fecal matter.
Yeah.
She was literally poisoning her own child just to be seen as this, like, heroic, tireless mother of a sick kid.
Which brings up a really heavy moral question. Society looks at Kathleen Bush, and we naturally view that as profoundly evil.
Oh, unequivocally.
But then, someone with conversion disorder, who might also be taking up medical resources and causing family stress, we view that as a tragic illness.
Right.
But in both cases, the mind is behaving abnormally. Both are driven by this desperate psychological need.
It really comes down to intent, which is so hard to measure.
Right. How do doctors actually prove intent?
Well, they look for clues. One of the big ones is this concept called la belle indifférence.
Oh, the French term.
Yeah, it means beautiful ignorance, or like a blasé attitude.
Yeah.
So if someone has genuine conversion disorder and they suddenly go blind, they might actually be weirdly cheerful about it.
Wait, really? Because if I woke up blind, I would be in absolute panic mode.
Exactly. Your amygdala would be flooding you with adrenaline.
Yeah.
But someone who is consciously faking it, a malingerer, they usually overact. They perform the panic.
Oh, to make the lie convincing.
Right. But the conversion disorder patient has la belle indifférence because subconsciously their massive anxiety has been solved by this physical symptom. The tension is gone.
Wow. Okay, so we've talked about the mind hiding stress in the body. But let's transition to when the mind hides stress from itself.
The dissociative disorders.
Exactly. If the body can't absorb the trauma, consciousness just checks out. It escapes.
And dissociation is a broad spectrum. You probably experienced it mildly.
Like highway hypnosis.
Exactly. You're driving, and suddenly you realize you don't remember the last 10 miles.
Yeah.
Your brain automated the driving, and your consciousness just detached.
But the clinical extremes of that are just staggering, like dissociative amnesia, forgetting a trauma completely.
Right. There's that case study of the 17-year-old girl. She was referred to a clinic because she kept losing massive chunks of time.
Yeah, she was waiting at a bus stop, right?
Yeah, she'd get off her school bus, and the next thing she knew, she was standing in her living room. The walk home was just gone.
And the second time it happened was even worse.
Way worse. She woke up in an empty field, stripped to the waist, with no memory of how she got there.
And when they finally used specialized therapy to figure it out, she had been assaulted by a group of boys at the bus stop.
Exactly. The physiological mechanism there is that during sheer terror, the brain gets flooded with cortisol. And extreme cortisol actually inhibits the hippocampus.
Which is the part that encodes explicit memory.
Right. So her brain basically pulled the plug on the recording device. She completely dissociated to survive the moment.
And then an even more extreme version of that is dissociative fugue.
Oh yeah, fugue. A memory trick here. Fugue shares a root with fugitive. You literally become a fugitive from your own life.
You don't just forget a trauma, you forget who you are. People flee their lives and assume entirely new identities.
And this raises crazy legal and moral questions. Think about the Rita Graveline case in Canada.
Okay, remind me about Rita.
She was married for 31 years, severe domestic abuse. Awful stuff. And one night, she shot and killed her husband.
Oh, wow.
But during the trial, the defense proved she was in a dissociative fugue state when she pulled the trigger. Her mind had completely fractured from the decades of abuse.
So she wasn't consciously there.
Right. Her consciousness had fled before her body shot him, and she had total amnesia for it.
Wait, so what happened?
The Supreme Court of Canada actually acquitted her of murder.
You're kidding. Completely acquitted.
Yep. Because of the fugue state.
Yeah.
Which poses this massive philosophical question for you guys listening. Are you morally culpable for a crime if you weren't mentally present to commit it?
That is so heavy because religion and law both require intent.
Exactly.
So From forgetting who you are, we really have to move to the ultimate extreme.
Yeah.
The mind splintering into entirely different people.
Right. Dissociative identity disorder.
It is. Formerly multiple personality disorder.
Yes. And we should clarify, these aren't just moves. These are distinct identities or alters.
And the physiological differences between alters are insane. They can have different allergies, different eyeglass prescriptions.
Different resting heart rates.
Yeah.
It's wild. Like Herschel Walker, the NFL star, he had, what, 12 different alters?
Yeah, 12. And the debate around how this actually happens is probably the biggest fight in psychology right now.
Oh, absolutely. The great debate. Let's lay out both sides impartially, because we're just analyzing the source material here.
Right, we're not taking sides.
Exactly. So the first camp is the trauma model. This argues that DID is an extreme coping mechanism for severe, usually childhood, trauma.
Like unspeakable abuse.
Yeah. There was this study by Dr. Dorothy Lewis. She looked at 150 convicted murderers and found 14 who had DID.
And their backgrounds were horrific.
Beyond horrific.
Torture.
The trauma model says that a child's personality hasn't fully integrated yet, so extreme trauma shatters it before it can form a unified self.
It's like, okay, think of a video game console.
Right.
It's like the brain has to create different save files for different characters because the main character's file is just too corrupted by trauma to keep playing.
That's a great analogy.
But then you have the other side of the debate, the sociocognitive model.
Right, led by the Canadian psychologist Nick Spanos.
And Spanos argued that DID is actually a socially constructed role play, which sounds controversial.
It does, but he wasn't saying they were malingering or faking it for a reward.
Right.
He was saying that highly suggestible people in severe distress unconsciously adopt a role, and often therapists inadvertently encourage it.
Which is called iatrogenesis, right?
Yeah.
When the treatment causes the disorder.
Exactly. Spanos noticed that a tiny fraction of therapists were diagnosing almost all the DID cases. They were using hypnosis and asking leading questions like, is there another part of you I can speak to?
And the brain just supplies it.
Yep. The brain wants to please the authority figure.
Which leads to the Hillside Strangler case. Ken Bianchi.
Oh, man.
He was a serial killer who tried to fake DID to plead insanity. He claimed this alter named Steve did the murders.
Right, and it only happened after a psychiatrist hypnotized him and basically asked for a hidden personality to come out.
And Spanos actually recreated this in a lab, didn't he?
He did. He took ordinary undergrads, put them under the same hypnotic conditions as Bianchi, and gave them the same leading cues.
And what happened?
81% of these healthy students adopted a new identity and confessed to mock crimes.
81%.
Wow. Yeah, he proved that if an authority figure demands a secondary personality, the brain is really good at making one up.
Spanos even connected this to the Salem witch trials, right? Like, demonic possession was just an earlier cultural template for the same role-playing.
Exactly. In the 1600s, the template was witchcraft. In the late 20th century, the template was multiple personalities.
It kind of reminds me of Elizabeth Loftus and the recovered memory debate, like how Spanos showed people construct alien abduction memories just using cognitive templates from sci-fi movies.
Exactly. It's all about how malleable the brain is.
So, synthesizing all this, whether we're talking about a whole town of teenagers developing adductics, or a mother making her kids sick, or a mind splintering into a dozen alters, the human brain's mechanisms for dealing with distress are just unimaginably powerful.
They really are. And it's important for you listening to realize that understanding these extremes helps us understand our own everyday stress responses.
Yeah, like why you might get a massive stomachache right before a huge exam.
That's a mild somatic response.
Or why you space out during a really boring or stressful meeting. That's everyday dissociation.
Completely. Which leaves us with a really provocative final thought to mull over.
Hit me.
We all take for granted that we are one unified person. But if the mind is capable of completely walling off memories, blinding our own eyes, or generating separate identities just to protect us,
Oh, I see where you're going.
is our unified self actually real? Or is it just a fragile, convenient story the brain tells itself just to survive the day?
Wow. That's wild. It really makes you question everything.
Right. The X-ray machine is never going to capture the complexity of human consciousness.
Definitely not. Well, thank you all for diving into the source material with us today on the Psychology Undergrad.
See you next time.